On the photography on the net forums, aka the Canon forums, someone had posted a question asking which Canon 70-200 lens he should buy, the f4 or the f2.8 version. He had mentioned that he understands that the f2.8 is heavier than the f4, and he had concerns on whether or not he could handhold that lens and a camera for extended periods of time for either portrait shooting, studio shoots, or perhaps just taking it out and about to shoot at zoos or whatnot. And someone had half-jokingly responded to his initial question saying that this person should go ahead and hit the gym and work out and lift some weight so he can train himself to hold a heavy camera for long periods of time. And that sort of caught my eye, and I responded to that, that initial reply with a very serious note that with regards to heavy cameras, heavy lenses, they should use what's known as skeletal support. And I mentioned that as a competitive high-power rifle shooter, we use skeletal or bone support to hold and support a rifle for extended periods of time in order to not get fatigued, because we have to put a round on target in the standing position at 200 yards on a 6-inch 10 ring with no support. I've taken those skills that I've been shooting, that I've gained and applied in high-power rifle shooting in the past several years to photography, and I'm fairly new to photography compared to most people. And I mentioned how we use skeletal support in rifle shooting, and how I've applied that to my photography. A couple of people were sort of interested in the concept of that because they don't, shoot rifles at all, and asked me to explain it. So I decided to create a short video to explain what I mean by skeletal or bone support. In order to demonstrate that, I'm going to have to show you how I do with a rifle first. This is a standard AR-15 20-inch service rifle that we use for NRA/CMP service rifle competitions. This is very similar to the United States military M16 A2, A3 models. The huge difference between those rifles and this one, besides the fact that theirs has the 3-round burst capability and this is only semi-auto, this weighs significantly more. The M16 used by the military roughly weighs 9 pounds, just under 10. This very rifle I'm holding in my hand weighs about 18.5 to 19 pounds due to the fact that I have a match barrel installed and lead weights in the front and the back end of the gun to keep it more stable in the standing, sitting, and prone positions. Okay, now you know this thing is pretty heavy, 18.5 pounds. It's probably a good way to demonstrate how skeletal support comes into play with regards to rifle shooting and holding something that's fairly heavy. Just as a firearm safety primer, we're going to demonstrate this rifle's unloaded. I have no magazine in the gun. Pull the bolt back. Visually and physically inspect that the rifle has no round in the chamber. I'm going to keep an empty chamber indicator in this gun throughout the demonstration to ensure that all the viewers know that this rifle is unloaded. Okay, first off, I'm going to demonstrate the type of stance and position that a lot of people see people use when those shooters are in some sort of, I guess for lack of a better word, a tactical situation. You often see on movies or TV, guys will shoulder their gun and come up on target to engage, holding the rifle out. You'll notice that I am kind of shaky when I'm trying to hold the rifle in position. For one, this gun is heavy, like I said, 18.5 pounds. Number two, the only thing that's supporting the rifle are my biceps and my deltoids and the muscles in my arms. It's very difficult to keep this rifle on target for an extended period of time in this, with this type of position. That said, in high-power rifle competitions, we shoot the standing stage of fire, which is slow fire, standing, unsupported, 200 yards, 22 rounds fired in a time limit of 22 minutes. So potentially you could be holding this gun for roughly 22 minutes, maybe resting the gun in this position at the ready, unloaded of course. So how do we handle this gun for 22 minutes and still keep it steady shooting on a 6-inch 10 ring at 200 yards? Assuming my target is to the right of the camera, let's say the target's there, this is how I typically square my body to the target. It's not really square, I'm kind of flat-sided to the target. I'm gonna keep my feet shoulder width apart. When I mount the gun, shoulder the stock, hand on the pistol grip. Next position, this is the key point of skeletal structure with standing. I'm going to put the rifle forearm in my hand, how I like to grip it, and I'm going to bring my forearm straight down into my body. Now you can see that what is supporting the gun, my weak side or my support side, since I'm a right-handed shooter, is my left side. My left arm is what is supporting the rifle in position. You can see I'm not really using my right hand for anything here. Balancing the gun straight down. You see this is fairly straight. The weight of the gun, 18.5 pounds, is pushing straight down into my forearm, and the natural cam of my arm is pushing all the weight towards my torso. My left arm, the bicep, the back end of my arm is into my chest, torso, side area of my abdomen, as you can see. So I mean, in a sense, there is muscle and fat in the way, which is cushioning this, but the fundamental weight is being bared by the bone in my arm, the skeletal structure in my arm, or my body. Again, shouldering the stock, bringing down the rifle in position. I can hold the gun on target for a fair good amount of time. Obviously, there is going to be wobble in play because nobody is extremely perfect and hold the gun perfectly still. It's fairly impossible. But as you can see, my fatigue factor is nowhere near as when I was trying to shoulder the rifle and hold it out with no elbow or skeletal support against my body to keep it in play or in position. So again, shoulder the rifle, bring down the arm straight down. As you can see, I'm also kicking my hips out slightly. This is another aspect of skeletal structure or skeletal support, in the fact that kicking the hips out is naturally bringing my rifle up if I need to get elevation on target, if the target's at an angle to me. Also, shifting my hips out gets the weight of the rifle towards the center of my body, closer to the center of the column of where my feet are, because my feet are shoulder width apart. So if I keep the weight down, straight down, it's toward the center of my body where I can support most of the weight, as opposed to forward. Trying to support the weight forward, it'll dip down. So naturally, keeping it forward, or keeping my hips forward, bringing the rifle weight, center of balance towards the center of my body. This maximizes the 18.5 pound support that I need through the skeletal structure of this position. And now that I've demonstrated how we use bone or skeletal support in competitive high power rifle shooting, now I have to show you how I apply that to photography. In order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and use this Canon 7D, which has the Canon 7200 f2.8L IS Mark II or version 2. First off, when a person, a new DSLR owner gets a camera and they start going out taking photos, the first instinct when they hold their camera is just to bring it up to their eye, the viewfinder, focus, and take the photograph. As you can see, this is this fairly standard way of taking photographs, but obviously everyone sees the flaw here is the fact that it's not very stable, in the sense that my elbows are out and the only thing supporting this is my arms, as far as the muscles in my arm and maybe my upper chest. I can hold this probably fairly stable, but I couldn't imagine doing this with a longer focal length or longer focal range lens. That said, one of the common recommendations that anyone's going to give a new photographer, a new DSLR owner, is to keep the arms tucked into your body. This is not necessarily bad, but you're going to see that this is a fairly stable position. Keeping my arms tucked in, this is almost like bone or skeletal support, because I'm using, basically you're keeping the weight of the camera is driving your arms close to your chest, and you're keeping it fairly stable as far as your camera is concerned. So this is a fairly stable position for most people. You can probably hold this for several seconds and get a good stable shot compared to this. But the flaw in this position, keeping your arms tucked in your body like this, is the fact that you are actually using quite a bit of muscle to keep the camera or your arms in this position. If you go ahead and get your own camera and try to hold your camera or hold the camera like this with both of your arms tucked to your chest, you're actually going to feel quite a bit of fatigue after several seconds, simply because you're using muscle to compress your shoulders together, which is what's getting your elbows tucked in close to your chest or your abdomen or your upper torso area. All this muscle that you're using to support, to keep your arms tucked in, this is what's causing quite a bit of fatigue. This fatigue is what obviously is making this camera feel heavy. This camera and lens isn't really heavy in so much that the reason why you're getting excessive fatigue right now is because of all the muscle you're using to compress your chest and your shoulders to bring your arms close to your torso. And this is why I don't like to use this very often at all, especially if I'm in a long portrait session or if I'm out at the zoo or something and taking a lot of shots. What I like to do is demonstrate how I apply my competitive high power rifle skills to photography, or at least hand holding a camera. Using the same demonstration as I do with the rifle, let's assume my subject, and I'm taking a portrait of someone, and my subject is to the right of the camera or right to the viewer, just left of me. I'm going to keep my body sort of weak side, my left side towards the subject, and I'm going to take the camera and I'm going to mount it almost like I would as far as support, like I would with a rifle. Use my palm as a rest the lens, or in this case I have a tripod collar, which makes a huge difference as far as getting elevation or angle on the camera. But I can rest the tripod collar, the lens collar, on my palm, go ahead and bring my arms down, keeping this straight, kind of fairly straight down, driving my upper arm towards my torso, getting the same style of support I was getting with the rifle, but I'm now getting with the camera. And I can focus on the subject and take the shot. But as you can see, the way I'm balancing this, I'm not using muscle. I'm using just simply the weight of the camera and the bone or skeletal structure of my body to support the camera. I can probably sit here for an extended period of time in this position and keep this without getting any fatigue. That's pretty much it as far as this demonstration is concerned. It's fairly short, but it gives you a basic idea of what I mean by bone or skeletal support with regards to photography and how to hand hold a fairly medium to heavyweight camera and lens combination for an extended period of time, or extended photography sessions, modeling or studio sessions, without getting too fatigued. I feel that this concept that I use for rifle shooting definitely crosses over to photography. I feel that this is going to give you a very good, good, stable, and relaxed position to work from, as opposed to trying to do the traditional method of getting a stable shot as far as photography is concerned. Like I said, there's nothing necessarily wrong with this if you're going to take one or two shots, in a casual situation to get a good stable shot. I mean, you do whatever you can to get a stable shot. I mean, kind of MacGyver, any kind of sort of support, holding your camera against a railing or something. This is going to get you whatever you need to get a stable shot. But as far as demonstrating bone and skeletal support, I feel that this is a good way to handle a medium heavyweight camera lens combination for an extended period of time if you're going to take a lot of photographs in a certain situation. I guess studio portraits or studio photography, this will probably be your best bet if you're not using a tripod. I challenge people to give it a whirl. I mean, it may not work for you, it might take some practice, but once you figure it out, or once you learn how to apply it, this may work well for you, and you'll find that this is actually a better way to hold the camera. So anyway, there you go.